Recording, did y'all hear that? Recording in progress. It's so official. Okay. Anya, and I apologize, ladies. You have, because you waited until today, not a lot of time to do this assignment. So my advice to you is just keep it simple and keep it short. So today we're going to talk about your job, which is to actually write a short story. Don't panic. And you're like, I'm freaking out. Do not panic. You know more than you think you do. You know, we started 4 months ago in August with fables. Remember, fables were collected mostly from Aesop. They are thousands of years old, passed down through oral tradition. They were short, they were cute, they had a moral, right? Then we went to fairy tales, which were my personal favorite. There's something about fairy tales, right? Also a clear message, yes, which I love. You cannot miss, what the intention is. And then we went to Greek mythology, which was a little angry, wasn't it? It was like curse, punish. Roman mythology, you know, it's really interesting. A lot of people prefer Roman mythology. And we talked about how they copied almost every Greek story, but copied from other cultures as well. So I'm purposely going to read to you 3 stories today, ladies. And you'll notice each of the stories is a page long. Okay, so what I want you to be looking for in the first one, the story of Andromeda, is what's missing. That's it. I just want you to look for what's missing. Andromeda was the daughter of a very rich man. She was not spoiled at all. Andromeda was as kind as she was beautiful. She was even more beautiful than her mother. Andromeda lived in a city by the sea. She was very happy. Everything was going along swimmingly until one day Andromeda's mother went too far with her boasting. Her mother boasted about Andromeda all the time. Her mother insisted she was the most beautiful child ever born, except for Venus, of course. One day she boasted that Andromeda was more beautiful than any of the gods' daughters, except for Venus, of course. The trouble started when Neptune's daughters heard her boasting. Neptune had always told his daughters that they were more beautiful than seashells. Who could possibly be more beautiful than seashells? Except perhaps for Venus. They whined to their father about it and whined until Neptune, in a fit of rage, flooded the city by the sea and sent a huge sea serpent to devour the entire population, thinking that would certainly shut his daughters up. The people were terrified. The flood had caused great discomfort. Even after the flood waters receded, the monster kept nipping at people. You never knew when he was going to pop up. He'd not even eaten anyone yet, but he kept trying. The people were very unhappy. The rich man asked a local oracle what he could do to put a stop to things. The oracle told him he had to sacrifice his beloved daughter Andromeda if he wanted to save his wife and himself. It saddened him greatly, but he chained his daughter to a tree on a cliff that overlooked the sea. That day Perseus was out adventuring. He sailed past just as the rich man's servants were chaining the terrified Andromeda to a tree at the edge of a cliff. Perseus fell in love immediately. As soon as the servants left, Perseus rescued Andromeda, using his magical sickle to cut the chains. Just then, the giant sea serpent reared its ugly head and reached for Andromeda. Andromeda screamed. Perseus, who was still holding his magic sickle, chopped off the serpent's head. Naturally, after that, Andromeda loved Perseus as much as he loved her. Perseus wanted her to sail away with him immediately, but Andromeda was insistent that he first ask her father's permission to marry him. She would not feel right about marrying anyone without it. The king gladly agreed to the wedding, so grateful that his problem was solved, and his beloved daughter was still alive. After the wedding festivities, Perseus sailed away with Andromeda. They lived happily ever after. Anything, ladies? Anya, have a suggestion? Anything was missing? What was missing for you? Anything you didn't like?
I felt like the problem was like kind of short. The solution, like after she was hung up, it was like right after he came and saved her.
Agreed.
Like there wasn't like any like drama kind of.
Tashvi, do you have any comments? Anything? I think there were some really good parts in there. It just felt like it needed more developing, didn't it?
Hmm.
I'll tell you what the problem is, ladies. It's only a page long. Everything was there. It just needed to go deeper. Okay, they're going to get gradually better. You ready? Go to the second story. This is the story of Minerva. Let me give you a little background. Minerva was born. Do y'all have these, by the way, or do I need to? Because I forgot to ask you that.
Oh yeah, I can pull it up right now.
Okay, do you have it, Tashvi? Because I can send it.
I need it.
Okay, so I should have asked that. I've been asking that every time, and this is the one time I didn't ask. Tashvi, I can send it really quickly. Anya, hold on.
Okay.
Easy fix. I just figured out. So y'all were just listening, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. You can always stop me, by the way, and tell me that. Okay. I promise I'll listen. Because you need it for the assignment anyway, right?
Mhm.
Okay, short stories. Okay, so you're going to get a short missed stories. That's the first one. And then you're going to get the short story assignment. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right. If you could just give me a thumbs up that you received it, that'd be great. I did just send it. Okay, so we're on the story of Minerva. So thumbs up when you get it, and we'll just continue. Okay, so Minerva, just a little backstory, was born without a mother. Her father was the mighty Jupiter, king of all the gods. Thank you. Minerva was born directly out of Jupiter's brain. I think that's pretty cool, right? Jupiter loved all his children, but if he had to pick a favorite, it would probably be Minerva, the goddess of wisdom. Minerva was a powerful force and one of the deities who made up the Dia Consentes, the Roman Council of 12 gods. There are many myths about Minerva. Ready? Okay. In ancient times, each town had a special deity, a god that looked after them. Neptune, lord of the sea, was a very powerful god. He loved attention. He loved having towns build temples to worship him. He loved the gifts people brought him. Neptune was always on the lookout for towns that had not yet been claimed by a god. He wanted as many towns as possible to call his own. Although towns could only have one god to watch over them, gods could watch over them as many towns as they chose. One day, Minerva, goddess of wisdom, and Neptune, lord of the sea, both claimed a coastal village. Normally, the people in the village would have been thrilled to be selected by a god to watch over them. But two gods at once? A town could have only one guardian, and they did not want to choose. They did not want to anger either god. Minerva, who was as wise as well as beautiful, understood their worry. She suggested that both gods should give the town a gift. The townspeople could decide which gift was better. Neptune loved the idea. The townspeople, if possible, were even more nervous than before. Neptune tapped the side of the mountain. Water flowed out in a beautiful stream. Fresh water was so important. The people were sure Neptune had won. When they tasted the water, they tried to smile, but they had to spit the water out. It was salt water. Then Minerva waved her hand. An olive tree began to grow. The people tasted the olives. Smiles broke out. The olives were delicious. The olive tree would provide food, shelter, and oil for cooking. It was a magnificent gift indeed. But no coastal village would risk angering the lord of the sea, the mighty Neptune. Fortunately for the people, they did not have to choose. Neptune threw back his head and laughed his mighty roar. Yours is a far better gift than mine, my lovely niece. The village is yours.
This is a lot like the story with Athena and Poseidon.
By the way, in the Greek version of this story, remember they steal him. Neptune didn't act that way. He flooded it. Really interesting. Yeah. The last one is my favorite. You ready? And again, there were good elements to it. Can you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the ancient Greek god Apollo enjoyed having temples built in his honor. He liked the gifts. He liked the attention. Everyone knew that Apollo was the god of music. He also brought out the sun each day. He had other special powers. Apollo could see the future. Not always, but sometimes. Everyone wanted to know the future. So Apollo's temples were busy places, full of people, full of questions about their future. His temples were so busy, in fact, that the stream of visitors asking him questions wore him out. Here we go. Hey, let me just tell you, and I want you to look for this. What's the message? Does this one impact us? See, what the other two stories were missing, there was no message, there was no theme, there was no real life application.
Mhm.
This one does. You ready? The Apollo's oracle at Delphi. This is like a philosopher's dream, this story. Apollo decided he needed an assistant, a wise woman. Right, ladies? An oracle. An oracle in ancient Greek was someone who could see the future. But Apollo did not want any old oracle to speak for him. He wanted a real one. But there weren't any real ones, not really. The oracles he had met always had vague answers. For example, if you asked an oracle if you should plant your garden tomorrow, they might say, the frost will be gone if the gods will it. Not really helpful. Apollo had the power to magically make someone truly see the future, just as he could. But Apollo didn't want to take the fun out of things. So Apollo set some ground rules for his oracle. He would use his magic to allow her to truly see the future. Apollo's rules stated that she had to tell the truth, but she could not be too specific. That would allow the possibility of misunderstanding. That would make it fun. Apollo magically turned a young priestess into a real oracle. He magically built a special temple for her home. He magically told a few people here and there about his wonderful oracle. It did not take long for the word to spread. People came from all over to ask Apollo's oracle a question. People had heard she could really see the future and could only tell the truth. One day, a weary king came to the temple. He asked Apollo's oracle if he would win the battle. She smiled and told him a great king would win the battle. That was exactly what he had wanted to hear. He went away happy, leaving many gifts for the oracle behind him. When he led his men into battle, they lost. The king was killed. But people still flocked to Apollo's oracle. They knew she had told the truth. She had to tell the truth. What a pity the king had not listened. What, right? Curveball. I love that ending.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about theme. What is so important about these three stories and what was missing in the first two was this theme. A theme is an important idea and it's woven throughout the story from the beginning, from the backstory, all the way through this story. The message was clear and it weaved in and out. The theme links a big idea about the world with the action of the story. And the big idea was people want to see their future. People want to know the future. You know, will I be successful? Will I be rich? Will I be happy? Will I meet the man of my dreams? Right? Mm-hmm. The theme answers the story, the question the story is trying to explore. So when you think about themes and you think about why authors write what they write, you know, they have a message. They have a purpose, they have an intention, if you will. So I'm going to assign a short story today. And I had a young man last week said, Miss Hensel, I don't know what to write about. I'm nothing. I have nothing. I have no story in me. And I looked at him and I go, wait a minute. Wait. Don't you play club soccer? He goes, yeah. I go, haven't you played club soccer for 3 years? He's like, yeah. And I said, I bet you see a lot. Like, do you see bad sportsmanship? He's like, yeah. Do you hear coaches yelling inappropriate stuff, parents? He goes, oh yeah. I go, kids talk trash on the field, kids cheat, like they foul you. He goes, oh yeah, I've seen it all. And I go, write about that. He was like, I can write about that? I'm like, well, is there something about it that bothers you? He's like, all the time. I said, you write about what you know, ladies. You write about what's important to you. And you kind of have, you know, because he plays club soccer, he has this, you know, wealth of expertise, right, that other people don't have. And he can weave a story about it. If you have animals, you could write a story about animals because you know what a cat and a dog is like. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So in a sense, you're going to make it easier on yourself if you already write about what you know. And ladies, you could write about things that go wrong at school. Girls are the worst. Ladies we're the worst about gossiping and hurting each other's feelings and being jealous of one another. Am I right or am I right? And you know, boys are the worst about other stuff too. They're distracting and they get in trouble a lot. We all have things we can write about, the observations. So why is a theme so important? Think about superhero movies. You know, the recent one right now is Black Panther, the sequel. And why is it so popular? Why are superhero movies so popular? Because they're theme. We want good to prevail over evil. That's such a predominant prevailing theme. So you can have common themes: overcoming evil, common theme. Surviving adversity, horrors of war. I mean, these are, you know, broad spectrum. So how do you know if you've got a good theme? Because the characters will learn something. The characters will grow and change. The characters will act in a way that's reflective of human behavior. And the reader at the end of the story will know the message. So all in all, the theme is an important story component because it conveys the central idea of the story. You know, when we did Jupiter and the Bee this month, and I said the central idea of the story was sometimes when somebody gets what they ask for, it's not what they thought it should be, right? And it was so clear. And that story was 1.5 pages long. So it doesn't have to be a long story to be a good one. Y'all know that, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So are you ready for your assignment? So don't panic. You know more than you think you do. Okay. So the assignment was given 2 weeks ago, actually. So if you missed it before the Thanksgiving break, those students had 14 days to do this. You don't. Okay. And I'm going to tell, are both of y'all in Coppell or are you not in Coppell?
I'm not Coppell.
Anya, Tasha, are you in Coppell?
I'm in Irving.
Okay, so this doesn't even apply to you. Okay, so I'm going to give y'all as much time as you want to write this story. Matter of fact,
Oh wait, like the class
okay, no.
or school district?
Okay, so let me just tell you, Coppell ISD has a creative writing competition every December. Okay, December 2nd, Friday, December 2nd. This Friday is the deadline. And I knew that 4 months ago when I prepared you with short stories. I knew what I was doing. So if you're in Coppell ISD, this Gifted and Talented Association, it's free. So I told my students who go to Coppell schools, this assignment in my class is mandatory. You have to do it. But if you're doing a story in my class and you have to do it anyway, don't you think you might as well submit it? Right? Because your language arts teacher is going to be so impressed with you that you wrote something to begin with. And my students win more often than not. And I'm not bragging. Here's why you win. Do other kids in your class have a teacher that's gone over short stories for 4 months?
No.
You are more prepared than most. And I'll be honest with you, I'm always surprised. Great essay writers are not always great storytellers. So sometimes somebody who's not a great essay writer will win and I'll be like, oh my gosh. But you can learn to be a good storyteller. So this assignment is due on Friday, December 2nd. Now, if you need a little more time, girls, I understand. So you have to do what you have to do, but get it into me ASAP. It's not optional in my class. You have to submit it to me. If you want to, you know, submit it. You can submit a poem or a short story. Here's the rules. So the rules apply to me as well. Must be a minimum of 1.5 pages. Cannot be more than 5 pages. I don't want to read 5 pages. Okay. Cannot be inappropriate. Cannot have, you know, inappropriate language. I don't want blood and guts and killing and murder. Okay. In the 4 months that I've read stories, has any one of them been inappropriate? It doesn't have to be, right? If you submit to Coppell, don't use my name. Use the language arts, your language arts teacher's name, because they will contact your language arts teacher at your school. If you're not in Coppell ISD and you still want to do this, it is a $20 fee. That's up to your parents. At this point, I can't do anything. Submitting is your parents have to do it because it requires a legal guardian. Here's the caveat. The date is December 2nd, which means I can't help you after this point. Okay, I will not edit or look at a short story until after the December 2nd deadline has passed. I'll offer you edits, which means you're on your own. So they know me by name in Coppell. They know Mary Hensel. I've been contacted. Did this student have any help? Did they cheat in any way? Because the rules are you cannot have help from anyone. I've helped you as much as I can up to this point, is what I'm trying to tell you. So I don't condone, nor will I participate in cheating. So I actually had a student this week sent me her story. And I replied back, I don't want it until after December 2nd. And she replied back, I've already submitted my story. And I said, that's happened to me in the past too. I've edited their story. They resubmitted. They take your latest submission. He submitted the edited version. She goes, I would never do that. And I go, I didn't think they would do it either. So I will not edit, period. I'm not even going, yeah, people will try it. Yeah, and not think it was cheating. Just, it's getting better. I'll turn in the better version, right?
Mhm.
But that is, in a sense, cheating. So how to map out a story. Well, so I had another student last week tell me, Mrs. Hensel, I love writing stories. I go, great. He goes, my problem is I write and write and write, and I get to about like page 5, and then I got to rush the endings. And I said, well, are you just free writing or did you map out your story? He goes, yeah, I didn't map it out. I was like, oh, okay. So you got to put a little planning into it, okay? Preparation is key. So think about your who, what, where, when, why. Who are your characters going to be? You want a strong, likable protagonist. You probably don't want any more than 2, 3 characters at most. I would say 2. You probably want a flawed antagonist. If you can make him as evil as you want, right? Make minor characters a few. You cannot have a story without a problem. So the problem will likely be between the protagonist and the antagonist, right? Does that make sense? What's going to be the solution? So that's where you start. The setting matters. If you want a creepy story, I asked this question. Let's say hypothetically you wanted your story in the creepiest setting you could think of. Where would you set it? I got haunted house. I got dark cave, back alley, cemetery. And I said, okay, what time of day? What did they all say?
Night.
Yeah. So your setting creates a tone and a mood. And that's just the first page. That's not even the plot. That's the entire second page. Okay, how is your story going to begin? How's the story going to be introduced? When we did Jupiter and the Bee this month, girls, I love that story, by the way. It's one of my favorite stories. What I don't like about the story is it starts with the problem. A little bee is mad, his honey is stolen. What that story should have done is shown a picture of him trying to defend it and flying around people, and they're just swatting him like a fly because he has nothing that they're scared of. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
That would have been a better introduction. So think about how you want your story to begin. Present the problem pretty quickly. Do you remember this story, Mother Holla, ladies? What I loved about that story is the rising action had, there were 2 sisters. One was the good sister, one was the evil
yeah.
stepsister, right? And the good sister has all of these basically tests that she has to pass. And she passes with flying colors, right? She goes home and the wicked stepmother says, I want that for my daughter, not you. The daughter has all the information, does the same tests, and the falling action fails miserably. Remember that one? But the rising action and the falling action balanced each other. It was the same steps. Structure matters. Structure makes it easier for you and the reader to kind of follow. And there's a reason we like that story so much. Make sure the resolution is clear. How was the problem solved? What's the ending? Make your theme clear. And you can be like a fable, and you could tell, you could tell what the theme is, what the message is. You want to spell it out? It's your story. You can. Okay, the last thing I want to share with you is dialogue. Okay. What you missed in class was a really cute activity. I had this story called Mr. Pancake Turkey, and don't worry, I'm going to send it to both of you today. So when you read Mr. Pancake Turkey, it shows dialogue, how to use dialogue, okay? And then I mixed it up and I made it wrong. So in class, we fixed all the punctuation mistakes. So I'm going to send you that. It will help. But use the original as a guide. So your format is really important in your story. Left margin lineup. Okay. Each story today, there's no indentation. It's not an essay. It's a short story. Okay. So when do you skip lines? Okay. There are two rules. When there's a change in scene. And you're the writer, you get to choose that. You know, if it's at night and then it goes to the next day, obviously that's a change in scene, right? The other time you skip a line is when a new person is speaking. Every time a person is speaking that's different, they get their own line of dialogue. And that's for you and the reader, so they don't get lost. So should a story have dialogue? It doesn't have to. But when it does, it's richer. It's deeper. We understand the character's actions and feelings, and we can make the characters say what they want to say. Here's the problem with dialogue. 98% of the time, and I had an 8th grader last year win it, and her dialogue was incorrect. Her punctuation was incorrect, is used incorrectly. It kind of hurts the overall story. So how do you know? So if you notice here, it says Samantha screamed, right? Okay, so a couple things here. Spacing is important. Samantha screamed, comma, one space. The quotation should face inward like an umbrella. If you ever seen your quotations go the wrong way, it's because your spacing is wrong. If your quotations don't face in towards the letter, it's your spacing. Okay, so quotation, there's no space, capital letter. It's like a brand new sentence. I'm not the problem. It was not my fault. Okay. One punctuation at the end of the sentence, a period, an exclamation mark, a question mark, then no space, just an end quote. I don't know what happens in a story, girls. People go punctuation crazy. Exclamation, exclamation, question mark, period, quote, exclamation, exclamation. And I'm like, what's going on? How many punctuation marks do you put at the end of the sentence, ladies?
One.
One. That rule does not change with quotation marks, okay? I promise you, you will never have punctuation after the quotation mark when using dialogue. It should be inside it. Period, quote, exclamation, quote. It should not be after it when using dialogue. There is a time that it is after it, but not when someone's speaking, okay? So you should never have that problem today. I never said you were, comma, end quote, space, Jesse replied. That is the end of a sentence. So you're going to need a period after the word replied. Mrs. Thompson, their teacher, suggested, comma, space, quote, capital W. Why don't you girls try to work this out in the hallway? Question mark, end quote. We agree, comma, end quote, said Samantha and Jesse, period after Jesse. Okay, so when I send you Mr. Pancake Turkey, and fix the punctuation mistakes, here's what I advise you to do. Number one, for fun, see if you can find the punctuation mistakes, and you have the original to compare it to. Use the original story of Mr. Pancake Turkey as a guide. When you're using dialogue in your story, use that as a guide, okay? Any questions?
I was wondering if the 3 stories that you sent us today, does that like meet the criteria of how long our stories have to be?
No, your story must be a page and a half minimum.
Okay.
And I think that's the point I was trying to make with these 3 short stories. I love that you picked up on that. There was something that was missing. They just weren't long enough, were they? They weren't. Okay.
Is it like gonna be single spaced or double spaced?
That's up to you. I would single space it because you get more on a page. But you know, if you're going to submit it to CGA, follow the rules of CGA. Okay.
Okay.
All right, girls, you're good to go. And I'm going to end the recording.